is the heart of China. Or rather, Jingdezhen is the heart of China. China if you're referring to porcelain. This ceramics capital has been the center of activity for production of porcelain since the Ming Dynasty, from the 14th to the 17th century. Come with me on this journey through the ceramics capital, Jingdezhen, China in China. Welcome to Travelogue, I'm Yan. Situated in northeast Jiangxi province, Jingdezhen is the homeland of porcelain. It crouches on the south of the Yangtze River, and its porcelain history dates to the Han Dynasty, almost 2,000 years ago. The original name was Xinping Town, then Changnan Town, because of its location in the south of the Chang River. In the Jingde period of the Song Dynasty, from 1004 to 1007, Emperor Zhenzong decreed that the town would produce all the porcelain of the imperial court and bear the inscription, made in the reign of Jingde. From then on, people called such porcelain the porcelain of Jingdezhen. In the Yuan Dynasty from 1279 to 1368, the famous kiln locations of the northern Song were mostly destroyed during warfare. It was only the remote Jingdezhen that escaped chaos. There, investment and advancement in porcelain ensued. Porcelain development also spread as the Mongolian rulers of China at the time were strong and engaged in trade with foreign countries. They amazed others with the beautifully elegant, fine white porcelain as they took them across the arduous Silk Road to the Middle East and slowly to other countries as gifts. At the same time, Middle Eastern fashion and style entered China and influenced Jingdezhen's porcelain. The result was the beautiful blue and white porcelain. Jingdezhen porcelain reached its peak in the Ming Dynasty, when the emperor sent court officials to supervise porcelain production and travel around the world. Zheng He, a famous Chinese navigator in the 15th century, traveled 7 times to as far as Africa, bringing large amounts of silk and Jingdezhen porcelain. At the time, Europeans still used coarse tableware, and the porcelain they laid eyes on became luxury items of the wealthy. The price of China's porcelain virtually passed that of gold, and Europeans referred to it as white gold. The British thus decided to call it China, associating it with the mysterious country. Dongbu village near Mountain Gaolian serves as the perfect location for the origin of porcelain. It's rich in natural resources. The mountains provide kaolin clay, the trees provide the firewood, the waters are mixed with the kaolin clay and allow the resources to be shipped to other places around the world. From the tops of the mountains, the resources, the clay, and the ceramics are wheeled to the docks by a stone path, which is marked with the erosion created by one-wheeled carts. Such is the path from kaolin to porcelain. All aboard the ship! Well, maybe they didn't have big ships back then, but still, this is a mini port. And this is how kaolin from the tops of the mountains would be transported to other cities and places of porcelain production. Thus, it's our main means of transportation and of huge historical significance. Today's old docks look nothing like the docks of the past. You'll see villagers washing clothes by the water instead of people loading the large number of trade ships. Now, this busy scene no longer exists. Instead, Dongbu village has quieted down. But take a close look, and you will see the footsteps history has left behind. The famous Dongbu Street lies on the bottom of the Gaolin Mountain, an important business center in the ancient times. Stone tablets date from the Qing dynasty, and the old commercial center still contains some old shops. Kaolin is a fine, usually white clay formed by the weathering of aluminous materials. In 1712, a French missionary introduced the term kaolin to the world, and then a German translated it into kaolin, according to the Chinese word gaolin, or high hill.
Unbelievable. I can imagine the workers carrying this kaolin from this mountain out there. Do-do-do-do, do-do-do, do-do-do-do, do-do-do-do-do-do. You might feel like you're Indiana Jones if you're inside this Kaolin mountain. And although the entrance is really small, it seems like this part gets wider and wider. I can almost stand up straight. See that? And the kaolin, although it looks solid, if you touch it, it sort of just crumbles off like that, really easily. Can you imagine? This is the beginning of porcelain.
It's from the tops of the mountains that kaolin starts its miraculous journey. Kaolin was discovered in the Yuan dynasty and has been used ever since in porcelain production. Its properties allow it to improve ceramic producing technologies. Although what we see here has a long way to go, in the end, what we get is the magnificent, magnificent ceramic. You can spot the importance of porcelain's past in Jingdezhen's old village. Here, local villagers still live in history. Just from these old alleys' names, references to kilns and porcelain are made. And neither are ceramics far from sight. In the Ming dynasty, almost all families had private kilns to make their own ceramics, and the leftover ceramics are used in walls and in architecture. Strolling the old street, it seems like pushing open any wooden door, you'll find hidden kilns buried in history.
Here you can find plenty of these twisting alleyways because they were all built around the kiln. And it was like the center of activity because plenty of porcelain makers would get around the kiln and make their porcelain. Nowadays, not too many people make porcelain anymore, but every once in a while, you'll still find a few people working with their porcelain.
Following the path, I was brought to a small shop. On the roofs, it seems like there were hundreds of bowls lined up. They were exactly the same. These ceramics are all made by hand, and you can even witness their production one by one. Using traditional tools, the craftsmen show us exactly how ancient ceramics were made.
Porcelain works its way into people's lives in sometimes unique ways. You see these bricks here? Well, they were actually taken from the kiln site. Maybe after a year of usage, they'd be good no more. And people would lug them back and build their houses with these bricks. And the construction seems pretty simple, but because of architectural techniques, they're really, really sturdy. These have been around for maybe hundreds of years. sometimes when we study history, we end up seeing a very blurry line between the present and the past. Under the sun, you might only see bricks and buildings. But one step further into the darkness, and you just might see the flames of the kiln come alive.
The burning flames of the kilns flashed day and night, and a French missionary was so surprised to see such a sight and wrote, "At daytime, the kiln smoke in the clouds was so high. In the evening, the kiln fire lights up the sky." Longzhu Pavilion was constructed on the top of the Zhu Mountain. During 1639, the imperial porcelain factories were established in this area, and the imperial porcelain factory became the representative building of Jingdezhen. The pavilion models the official kilns during the Ming and the Qing dynasties. The ceramics made for the emperors followed strict standards. Only perfect pieces were allowed in the palace. No flaw was tolerated. As a result, perhaps only one piece out of 100 would be selected. Many common themes on these pieces are dragons and court life. The pieces for the emperors would be marked with the characters that established the period in which it was made. Well, and as for the others that didn't make it into the palace, they would not be passed to commoners. Their ultimate fate was destruction and burial, hidden from the world. There's a legend that says that one emperor ordered the production of one dragon jar. People were killed if his wish was not satisfied. But finally, a man named Tongbin jumped into the kiln, and thus the jar was finished, perfect and flawless. From that day on, people have referred to him as a high spirit, and often asked for his help before lighting up the kiln. Today, most people that want to study ancient ceramics don't find complete pieces. Instead, they have to take the broken shards and rebuild history. Whoa! This expert is putting back together this porcelain from all the shards here that were found at the kiln site. Looks like pretty hard work, but almost like a jigsaw puzzle. And you know, I was the jigsaw queen back in the day, so let's give it a try. I'm sure I can do it too. Just putting this, well, maybe it doesn't go like that. Give me some time. I'd say a year is enough. Come back then. In the Ming Dynasty, the technology behind ceramics production reached new heights. Today, there are now 72 steps in the process, including clay washing, throwing, trimming, drying, glazing, and so on. The best craftsmen, the best technologies are centered in Jingdezhen, so obviously the best pieces can also be found here. It was in the Ming Dynasty that the ceramics of Jingdezhen had a special status in China and around the world. Although the pieces here aren't for the emperor, they seem perfect enough. So this is the before product. And you see,
the ink on this bowl is black. But after it's put in the kiln, it'll miraculously transform to a whole different color. Look over here. This is the traditional blue and white china. This is the before, and this is the after. This man right here is using the potter's wheel to sort of mold out this bowl. And you see with his hands, he's shaping it. Looks easy. It takes him maybe less than a minute to make one bowl. But for me, I don't think so. It's always my turn. Okay. Want to see something? Oh, but I'm not going to show you. This is my private piece of work, huh? First, you got to find a kiln, and then I'll promise to let you see.
And behold, we are in luck. We found a kiln. Although it's not used today, it serves as a good model of what an actual kiln looked like.
Wow. So this is the inside of a kiln building. And you can see there's 2 flights. On the first floor is where the people could put their molded clay and store them up in the saggers back here, the structure. And then upstairs is where they would keep the firewood for burning up the kiln. Of course, there's my favorite part, the most important, the kiln itself, where the burning was actually done. And that is back there. Wow. This kiln has a history of about 400 years. That is a lot of time. And there's actually some unique architectural characteristics. You see on the wall here, the base, you see bricks lined horizontally. And above that and around is a very dome-like shape. And at the very top, it seems like the bricks are just hanging up there, all the way around. And the bricks are actually stuck together with clay and mud. Right here, see the clay and mud? It's very, very sturdy, and it's a mystery how they're stuck together like that. It can stand temperatures of around 1400 degrees Celsius.
Mysterious is just not enough to describe it. What used to be just a combination of water and clay is slowly transformed. This is a labor-intensive process, and workers must load the carriers very carefully into the kiln. Of course, perhaps the most important person is the keeper of the kiln door, who must determine the right placement and temperature. But ultimately, the fire makes the final decision. If everything works out just right, what you end up is a beautiful piece of art.
So now, this is the second story of the kiln, flight number 2. And look up here, and you'll see a chimney. Next to the chimney, there's a dome. On the sides of the dome, there's a lot of bricks you can see. Well, in the wintertime, the bricks here would keep the heat on the inside. And then, in the summertime, they'd keep the dome from expanding or changing shape.
"400 years ago, we'd be surrounded by piles and piles of wood. But not anymore. Today, all we have are these poles and the streaks of the afternoon sun." In the modern day, China is made using large-scale production that includes many advanced foreign machinery and the quick development of Jingdezhen's electrical porcelain industry. Times have changed, and increasing demands mean more porcelain. Although machines do most of the work, still, people make sure the products you find are the best of the best.
Big vase. Stool. Teapot.
China comes in all different shapes and sizes, different colors, and different functions. In some shops, there are even accessories made of porcelain.
Nice. Well, besides porcelain for tableware and vases, you can also make every girl's favorite, jewelry and jewelry boxes. You can see the porcelain of today has a modern twist. However, the best pieces are still the same. It is as white as jade, as bright as a mirror, as thin as a piece of paper, and as resonant as a bell.
My mother used to say, "Don't play with your tableware." Well, it's not the case when you're playing these porcelain instruments. Yes, porcelain bowls, bells, drums, flutes, and chimes. They're all transparently glazed and form an orchestra of people and instruments. Listen to the classical music, and you just might understand the essence of Jingdezhen's porcelain culture. Outside in the central square of Jingdezhen, there are statues that commemorate the history of porcelain production. Porcelain making is not just a craft, but the essence of the culture of Jingdezhen.
Amongst towering skyscrapers, busy traffic, and plenty of people, there's still a bit of the past and the present. Well, I want to show you my bit of history. Do-do-do-do! Remember the bowl I made? It's out from the kiln. Hey! You like it? In our History and Culture series, you've learned about China in China. Thanks for traveling with us. I'm Yin. See you next time.
In the next episode, we continue with the Ming Dynasty by visiting the mysterious gardens of Suzhou.